We all know one, the person who refuses to get a smartphone and pays you to use your Uber, or that single friend of yours who still hasn't tried online dating. So here to tell us more is WSJ reporter Charlie Wells in London and Dustin Shin, a late adopter in the flesh living in D.C. Welcome to both of you.
Good morning.
Great to be here.
So, Charlie, first off, are there more late adopters out there than we might think? And what characteristics do they tend to share?
That's a really great question. So according to a 1962 landmark study, actually about 16% of most populations tend to be laggards when it comes to adopting new technologies. And beyond that, 34% of people tend to fall into this sort of late majority category. So people who sort of come to products well after most consumers. And a lot of the characteristics, you might think of a late adopter as someone who's not really sort of plugged in, not really thinking about the latest trends, but in a lot of the interviews that I conducted for this article, they had some really good sort of consumer characteristics. They were skeptical, they did a lot of research, they sort of didn't necessarily buy into the hype and all that marketing.
Sounds good to me. So Dustin, is this the way you feel? You're 27 years old. Many people in your generation are quick to embrace technology, but not you. So tell us about your recent experience with Tinder.
Thank you. Well, I didn't know there are so many of us, so thanks, Charlie, for the fact. But, I think you don't need to really fix what isn't broken. So sometimes there's a certain charm to the old school way of doing things. And for example, with taxi cabs, I think they've done a pretty good job. So I don't really see a reason why we would have to lay off all these cab drivers and suddenly, get a new app. And with Tinder, it's sort of similar. I mean, there is a certain charm to meeting someone in real life and, actually having a special moment with that person as opposed to, some machine giving you pictures. I'm just a little skeptical of that.
You sound like a romantic. Something tells me you're going to get a lot of phone calls after this interview. But let me tell you, you did try Tinder with your BlackBerry. Is that right? What was that experience like?
That's right. Yeah, I think the app isn't working quite as well as it should be. It's not the same app as in the iPhone. I think it's a different platform, but it does connect to the Tinder database. I mean, it works. It gets the job done in the end.
Do you feel that sometimes people make fun of you?
I wouldn't say making fun of me. Some people see me as old school, and I think that's fair enough,
That's right. Yeah. Well, you're here talking to us on Skype, so that's something. So, Charlie, tell us about these, these late adopters. When they finally do come around to a new product or a technology, how do they tend to react to it?
They tend to be surprisingly loyal. So I spoke with an MIT researcher who actually found that, it takes a long time to convince these sort of, very in-depth researchers, these consumers who really are kind of looking at all of the pros and cons. But once they decide that they are on the pro side, they're going to stick with that. I spoke with a guy who was sort of reluctant to join this whole Fitbit craze, but once he joined, he stuck with it, and he actually recently upgraded to a new model.
That's good. They're skeptical, but if it works, they'll stick with it. Now, Charlie, it can be a little frustrating if one of your friends is not able to text you. I mean, we're all up to speed. So do you have any advice or tips for bringing your friends around?
Based on a lot of my conversations with late adopters and with people who have been researching this category of consumer, you really need to sort of communicate with the late adopter in the way that they think about products. So early adopters tend to get really excited about the bells and whistles, the new opening, the latest thing, whereas later adopters are focusing more on sort of specific needs, how a product sort of actually meets a need that person needs. So focus on that instead of, blowing smoke in their face.
So Dustin, before we let you go, is there a technology that you really like? Is there something you can't live without?
I guess, in the end, as everybody, I also subscribe to Facebook, and I really appreciate it because I can stay in touch with my family, and they're distributed all over the world. So I'm always being kept up to date, and that's great.
But old school, and I like it. Dustin Shin, thank you. Charlie Wells in London, thanks to both of you.